I've probably mentioned before that prior to the time that we moved up to Evergreen, it was pretty much a rural place, and obviously from the pressure it was put on us by some people saying, you don't want to go up there. Evergreen had been a place that some people didn't want to work. Too rural, too country, too far from the big city. Well, we're country, we wanted to go. And we find out that one of the things that Riley Scott, the Wilmot principal, had been doing to help get staff to be happy to be there was a special thing that the week before hunting season, he'd borrow horses from the community, and anybody that wanted to would ride. If you didn't want to ride, wanted to go anyway, you could ride in a pickup or in a Jeep that went up. Took us up on the side of Mount Evans and had an overnighter that was really nice. Well, to get the horses, he borrowed them from people. Can you imagine a principal with established reputation as a mountain man, as a horseman, that people would willingly let him take their horses for a bunch of greenhorns to ride? Says a lot about Riley Scott and a lot about the mountain community. One of the places we went to get horses, he asked me to help. He knew I'd been a farm boy, that we'd had a horse, and he figured I could help. I could a little, nothing like he could. But one of the places we went was the Hank Alderfer Ranch, and Mrs. Alderfer is a high school librarian. Hank was one of the very good bus drivers. They had children in school. They're the kind of people that later left quite a lot of land to add to the park area so that people could enjoy the mountains. Fine family. Mention them here because I got a little story to tell about that bus driver, Hank Alderfer, later. Well, Donna and I really looked forward to going, and I got to ride a decent horse the first year, nothing fancy. Horse that we picked up from one of the students of the junior high. But we picked those horses up at Alderfer. I had no idea that the one horse, as I remember, a paint, would be really something to see. He always put somebody that kind of knew what they were doing on that horse. And when you pulled up fast, and the horse was rare, kind of like the Roy Rogers thing. Woo, I thought I'd like to be able to ride that horse someday. Got to later on. One time as we were coming back from the camp out, as we got pretty much back where the cars were, beautiful night, the moon was up, it was dark, and the elk were calling to each other. Oh boy, I'd never heard an elk bugle. And incidentally, there's a difference between the way that bugle sounds there before the season starts and well into the season when they've been bellowing into their horse. Don't sound the same at all. Oh, that night they were beautiful. There'd be elk bugle over here on this hill and elk over here on this hill answer. I suppose maybe getting a little challenge going. Don't know. Don't know that much about it, but I do know they fight sometimes over who's the chief elk here and who's going to get to mate with these cows. Who's going to have this cow in this harem. Another time when he had a boys' men's tent and a ladies' tent. Another time I remember waking up in the night to hear a horrible racket. It sounded almost like the coyotes were going to chase the rabbit or whatever they were after right through our tent. But I suppose it went between the tents. Man, I mean, those coyotes were close. And right on the other side of camp, they nailed that poor animal. And, oh, man, you never heard such a ruckus in your life. If you think the noise was something as they were howling and chasing the poor thing, once it was caught, there was a terrible fight to see who got a bite full. Didn't last long either. You heard about one or two squeals and the rest was fight. Another time we were all, well, every time we had beautiful food and cooked it out, on a campfire. And then as the sun went down, the coals on the fire, sing different songs, stories. Oh man, it was nice. That was one of the nicest things about being at Evergreen. Well, there was another time that I actually got to ride the horse at Rares, and that was fun. Just plain fun, and an honor to be allowed to ride Mr. Oliver's horse that put on a little show. Don't think it was that particular year, but there was another time I was on a good horse, and Riley would take a bunch of us that wanted to go on Sunday morning and take a trip up in higher on Mount Evans, see if we might spot a herd of elk. Never did, but it was fun to go. And he'd make it a pretty exciting route there and a pretty good run. So we're galloping along on a narrow trail, come around a bend, and I guess they'd seen something because everybody stopped. My gosh, we come around the bend, there's too many horses there, there's liable to be a collision. I don't want to be in a collision. There's a tree there and a limb hanging out. I grab the tree limb and leave my horse. Old Gene Younger comes around later and he teased me until the year he died. He said, I'll never forget coming around that bend and seeing that fat possum hanging on a limb. Don't get called a possum too often. Turns out there was no crash at all, and I didn't need to dehorse. I was real proud I could when I thought I should. Another time, our neighbors, the Schlesselmans, had a young horse that had just been broken. It was gentle, and they said, why don't you take that horse and you ride it? Okay, fine. Got along just fine, except I think it was on a Sunday afternoon. We're getting ready to do some riding. I could not. That horse had decided I've had enough and I'm not going to take that bit. I couldn't get it bridled. So I got Big Gene Younger. And the two of us couldn't get that bridle on that horse. So I went to Riley Scott and said, Riley, have you ever seen a horse you couldn't bridle? No. Well, I said, I hate to tell you, but Gene and I together can't get the bridle on Schlesselman's horse. So here comes Riley, and the word spread around there. I don't know how it works, but there must have been 10 or 15 of us standing back watching Mr. Riley Scott approach that horse with bridle, and he tries to put it on, and it rears up on its head a time or two, won't take the bridle, and the first thing we know, he does a thing I'd heard in Western stories, a little something about this, but I never expected to see it in real life. First thing you know, he's putting the bridle on, the horse rears clear back over, Riley goes up with the horse, he's got it, and he's got the ear in his teeth. The horse goes up and over and falls, and Riley goes up and over and falls, and when they get up, the bridle is on. Well, well, well. Never seen anything like it. Never saw anything like it again. Never will. Riley Scott, special guy. Strange, man, that talented, that aware of how to do so many things. A few years after we left there, I guess he was pulling stumps with a tractor on his property. The tractor turned over and killed him. You never know.